You know, you cover elections and witness events, and you see the outcomes of both, and at a certain point you begin to wonder, is the game really rigged, or do the people deserve everything they get? I'm unfortunately beginning to believe it's the latter, because after multiple years of having to listen to the people of Chicago bitch and moan about the horrible leadership under now former Mayor Lori Lightfoot, they decided to elect a man that is to the left of even Lightfoot. So it really and truly pains me to say that my hometown of Chicago, the people that showed up to vote, and the crazy amount of people that stayed home on election day deserve every bit of what's coming their way. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me one more time for another edition of the best kept secret in the conservative movement, Things That Need to Be Said. For MRCTV, I'm Nick Kangadis. Really quick, I'd love it if all of you could head on over to Rumble, subscribe to our channel, and hit that plus button. And no matter where you watch our videos, please share, like, and don't be afraid to leave a comment. I love to read what you guys have to say, and I couldn't do what I do without all of you. Now, on with the show. I'm afraid that Chicago has just signed its own death warrant. Forget the fact that Republicans don't even bother running for mayor in the city of Chicago. The people had a choice between a centrist Democrat with a penchant for the rule of law and a far-left, union-leading, strike-facilitating, progressive activist. And of course, Chicagoans chose the guy that would rather focus on reimagining the idea of a police force than allowing police to do their jobs and letting them get the remnants of a failed public school system off the streets and in the slammer. At least with Lightfoot, as god-awful as she was.
Yeah, that's Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot coming out in full costume, cape and mask as the Rona, as in Corona destroyer.
She didn't really do anything besides talk about identity politics and turn down President Trump when he offered to help with crime in the city. The guy that was elected, Brandon Johnson, is fully motivated in implementing and further cementing the Marxism that runs rampant in Chicago. And believe me, even the people in the suburbs where I grew up, most of them all drank the Kool-Aid and were good little progressive youth that grew up in a vote blue no matter who crew. You try and talk to these people that you thought you once knew, and they jump down your throat because you actually use your brain instead of just blindly believing what you're told.
Please believe me! Please believe me!
So who is Brandon Johnson? Let me give you a quick lesson in just who in the hell these people think is better than the person they complained about for years. Johnson is a former teacher who helped the Chicago Teachers Union, you remember the whole Red for Ed slogan, organize the 2012 teachers strike. Johnson said this during a forum organized by the Chicago branch of a group called Solidarity Socialists back in 2012 following the strikes. And really quick, just for context, Solidarity classified themselves back in 2012 as a quote-unquote socialist, feminist, anti-racist organization. You know, so full of shit. Here's a clip from the over 15-minute speech.
And be able to look into the cameras of the world and say that this movement here that we're building and this fight that we're in is sexist and racist. And the response from the crowd, which was predominantly white, was a moment that I think in this struggle that finally allowed, the exhale to finally happen. Because now we're not just simply talking about compensation. We're talking about the social justice issues that was originally birthed out of taking control over this union.
Moving on to today, on his campaign website, Johnson's On the Issues section says the following for how he looks at education for the city. Quote, "We need to tie workforce development efforts in our schools starting in the earliest grades and help CPS to do its job by providing needed support around school safety, helping students traumatized by violence, expanding school-based health centers, and improving access to technology. What we cannot do is cut city aid to schools as the current mayor is doing, Lightfoot at the time, and plans to do as we implement an elected school board. Then we need to work together to increase school funding and institute a fairer school funding formula," unquote. While some of that sounds good, Did you notice that very little of that socialist word salad spoke about actually teaching kids what subjects you're supposed to be taught in school? Nope. He constantly talks about more funding. And sure, who doesn't think that most schools should have a library and a nurse within them? But if you actually look at the yearly fiscal budgets for the Chicago public school system, you'd see that the operating budget for the system was $5.11 billion back in 2012, and it stayed pretty stagnant until about 2018. From 2018 to the 2023 fiscal year, the budget for CPS jumped from $5.75 billion in 2018 to $9.4 billion for this fiscal year. So while yes, schools should have libraries, at least small ones, and a nurse, maybe look at who is allocating funds, because the socialists that run that school system have seen a vast increase in the budget, yet still can't manage to even teach their students how to read or do simple math. According to statistics compiled by U.S. News and World Report, quote, in Chicago public schools, 25% of elementary students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 21% tested at or above that level for math. Also, 24% of middle school students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 21% tested at or above that level for math. And 21% of high school students tested at or above the proficient level for reading, and 23% tested at or above that level for math, unquote. And yet, the graduation rate for Chicago public schools is 78.4%. That means a good portion of students can't read or do math at a proficient level, but graduate anyway. Thanks for that No Child Left Behind, President W.
You teach a child to read, and he or her will be able to pass a literacy test.
Me.
Is that him?
Teach a child to read, and he or her will be able to pass a literacy test.
Folks, that's just education. Other subjects that Johnson has on his campaign website that he believes are important enough to address include disability justice, environmental justice, gender equity, LGBTQ rights, and reproductive rights. Ready for the lightning round of this guy's beliefs and plans for the city of Chicago?
Here we go!
Under reproductive rights, Johnson claims that abortion is healthcare and that abortion should be a constitutional right. He even wants to fight for the right to an abortion for quote-unquote transgender and non-binary individuals. Brandon Johnson is committed to gender equity and justice and will make the structural changes necessary for all girls, women, and transgender and gender non-conforming persons in Chicago to thrive. Brandon will transform Chicago into a national model for gender equity and reproductive rights, champion LGBTQ rights as human rights, and be a visible and vocal ally to creating safety and equal opportunity for the LGBTQ community. He will enact Chicago policies that address all of the issues that impact members of the LGBTQ community, regardless of ability, age, ethnicity/race, faith, gender expression, immigrant status, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status on immigration, building on his track record of multiracial solidarity on the county board, including collaborating with Latinx colleagues to eliminate the gang database and secure legal representation for immigrants facing deportation. Brandon will work to strengthen Chicago's City Key program and fully resource services that support displaced immigrants arriving in our city.
Bueno, pues yo no sé si son Latinx ni es men, pero yo sé que yo soy latino y dominicano.
And under his gender equity tab, Johnson looks to have actually copied and pasted the Transform Chicago quote I read to you earlier. You ever notice how these people, and when I say these people, I mean brain-dead activists, always use the word equity now instead of equality? It's because they never wanted equality, because equality means equality of opportunity, while equity means equality of outcome, and that's just another aspect of the far-left religion. Concerning environmental justice, as mayor, Brandon Johnson will make Chicago a leader in sustainability and usher in a Chicago Green New Deal that transforms our city and makes a better future possible. On day one, He will order a comprehensive study of this city's environmental needs with a focus on identifying the hazards on the south and west sides. He is confident that we can finish that study in the first 100 days with the assistance of community groups and advocates. Then we will develop new environmental regulations to reduce and mitigate the pollutants that are fouling our water and air, and it won't take centuries for a Johnson administration to put those regulations into action, unquote.
Right.
So this is what you want, huh, Chicago? How many of you idiots even knew a fraction of what I just presented to you about this guy before you voted for him? Probably none of you. Look at what you've done and continue to do to my city. I've taken up enough of your time today, so I'm just going to leave you with this. People of Chicago, you deserve every single thing you voted for, and at this point, I don't feel bad for you at all, so I hope you get all those things coming to you really soon. So, is this just par for the course for Chicago, or were these things that needed to be said? Let me know in the comments, where I do read most and reply to some. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel on Rumble and hit that plus button. If you like this video, don't forget to share, comment, and give it a thumbs up. Those are the best ways to help these videos reach more people, and it's the best way to let us know you want us to keep these videos coming. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so that YouTube might actually let you know when MRC TV comes out with a new video if they haven't censored it or taken it down yet. Like us on Facebook, check out more of our work at mrctv.org. And if you want to support our content and the conservative movement, head on over to mrc.org/donate to help us out, since we're a nonprofit and couldn't do what we do without all of you. For MRC TV, I'm Nick Kangadis.